In many cases regarding pre-Hispanic deities, most people only know the classic Quetzalcoatl, Tlaloc, Tezcatlipoca, and a few others here and there. But there are others equally important yet unknown to the majority despite being in plain sight. Just as we see in the center of what many call the Aztec calendar, where we appreciate the character from our video, Nanahuatzin. His existence is based on what we call now myths and legends. But for the Mexicas and other groups, these were real accounts, just as Jesus is for the Christians today. But in the case of Nanahuatzin, he was a character who provides us with mathematical, astronomical data, dual concepts, transformations, what we now call morals, as well as education aspects for a society. Representations of him survive in pre-Hispanic codices, and the most famous is this one, where we see a being with a hanging eye, a half-open mouth, and in a very uncomfortable position with bent arms and legs. The image represents a deformed and sick being. But how did this evolve to the central image of the TONALAMATL? With Nanahuatzin, we are dealing with a concept of evolution and even moral teaching. Obviously, he didn't exist. And we are certain of this since the main stage where he appeared is a place whose name not even the Mexicas knew. I am referring to Teotihuacan. The Mexicas were amazed by the ruins of the city, inventing the name Teotihuacan. Some translations of this name include the place where the man becomes a deity, but despite having seen remains of foundations covered by vegetations, the ones that stand out are what the Mexicas themselves called the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon. Constructions, they believed, only divine beings could have created, but faced with the uncertainty of who lived there, they sought to justify many things that would have originated there. The main one being the era in which the Mexicas lived and sought to dominate. But their inventions were backed by mathematical calculations, mysticism, and legend. They invented that before them there had been 4 previous eras to which they assigned specific time periods. But in the 5th era, which they logically did not see the beginning of, they narrated that the deities guaranteed in that place for the birth of the 5th era and the sun that will illuminate it. So, what better place than this abandoned city to talk about an origin and of course a political justification of Mexica power? In this myth, we see part of their worldviews, starting with the concept of duality. The creators of everything are found in Ometecuhtli and Omezihuatl. We also have duality in the first human couple with Oxomoco and Zipactonal. And in the Teotihuacan, we have another duality that emerged from a sort of call where it was asked who would be the sun and moon of the new era. Offering for the task was a rich, beautiful, powerful, and arrogant being named Tecuzistecatl. On the other hand, the opposite, someone poor, humble, sick, and of course not physically attractive. This was Nanahuatzin, the venerable 4x4, because Nahui in Nahuatl means 4. From his name, 4 will arise the name of the new sun, being displaced in many places, where we see the central sun surrounded by the sign of movement and 4 numerals. Obviously, and this is his final transformation. For, as we said, he was originally a sick being. In fact, a type of prismatic disease bore his name, called Nanahuatzin, which is believed to have been a venereal disease similar to leprosy. A disease the Spanish called bubas, which are a type of sores that form of the skin. Therefore, Nanahuatzin was called the score-covered, or the blistered. And if we add to these apparent deformities in hands and feet, we are dealing with a being worse than Quasimodo. But the deformed shape of his hands and feet remind us to the spinning blades, which is precisely why the fifth sun was called the Sun of Movement, representing these deformities as movement. Clearly, his physical defects, deformities, and illness fully contrast with the Teotihuacan. But despite this, when it came to sacrificing himself in the fire and giving life to the stars, the Teotihuacan was afraid to throw himself into the fire, while Nanahuatzin made a brave decision, a life-giving decision, and without hesitation threw himself into the fire, transforming into the sun we see here. But out of jealousy and envy, the other threw himself too, becoming another sun. However, as punishment for his cowardice and reward for Nanahuatzin's decision, the second son was struck with a rabbit, thus losing light brightness. All this speaks to a moral world, the arch of great things. One does not have to be rich, beautiful, or powerful. Even the most humble and insignificant can dare to sacrifice themselves for the benefit of others. For thanks to the birth of the sun, humans could later be born. Of course, all this was adapted by the Mexicas, because what we now call the pyramid of the sun, which according to them will represent Nanahuatzin. More recent investigations have discovered that it will be more related to Tlaloc, having even found statues of him at the top, and of course in reality there was no ceremony of deities creating eras here. But what is certain is that this myth of Nanahuatzin does exist in the codices, where he was assigned to rule the day of movement, just as his deformed hands and feet appear. In the Borgia codex, he even has his own throne, only fitting for great characters, even superior to the Icpali of the Tlatoanis. And of course, there is another legend that tells us who his family was. He was the adopted son of Pitzinteuctli and his wife, Xochiquetzal, who had a son named Xochilpili, another who was not their son but whom they raised equally, named Nanahuatzin in this version. And well, his substitute family was made up of beautiful and radiant beings, as Pitzinteuctli, Xochiquetzal, and Xochilpili are related to the sun, flowers, and life in general. But despite being an adopted son, he also became the sun that illuminates us. This shows that there are people who make themselves, despite having everything against them, who give, not seeking more recognition than the full-faith duty. Of course, once he became the sun, Nanahuatzin Tonatiuh became demanding, insisting that all other deities sacrifice themselves so that he could move in the sky. Nanahuatzin is also associated with twins, as he appears in codices alongside Xolotl, another monstrous being in appearance, which is none other than the planet Venus when it appears in the west. His worship was even personified, as people precisely deformed, sword-covered like Nanahuatzin, were recognized as his living representation, offering him quells, as a sacrifice every day, their sun rose again. Perhaps the duality between Tecusitecatl and Nanahuatzin contributed to the Mexica form of government, having the duality of Tlatoani and Cihuacoatl. And as we said, his calendarical name for movement is found in the Tonamatl here, being a number that supports the realization of mathematical and astronomical calculations. In short, Nanahuatzin is the movement of everything. A movement that gave morals of humility and courage, as well as life and light provided by the sun of the fifth era.